Hi, I'm Copper France with Bank of Commerce, and I am here to give you just a little training, I guess, if you will, for the Head Start families on budgeting and the different things that I would consider when setting a personal family budget. So, the first thing I would say is you have to figure out how you want your budget to look. Um, I set mine up. I get paid on the 1st and the 15th, and so I have kind of two separate budgets. So I have a budget for the first of the month, and I have a budget for the middle of the month. And so when I get paid the first of the month, I figured out what bills have to be paid the first of the month. And then I take those bills and break them down. And I set aside money each part of the month to go into savings. And we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But the first thing that I do is I figure out, like at the first of the month, I figure out what my house payment is, what my rent payment's going to be. I set aside money for insurance because I know I have to pay insurance on my vehicles. I figure out what my utilities are going to be. And the way I set my budget for utilities is I find what it's going to be the highest amount during any month. Like in the winter months, I know my gas bill is going to be higher, so I set my gas bill for the whole year. I set my budget off of the worst case scenario of what it's going to be in the winter months, and that way I always have just a little bit of money left over for those surprises that may come up. Um, I do the same thing for my bill for the city, for water, for trash. I do the same thing for my electric bill. I kind of figure out what the worst case scenario is and I budget for that amount. Then it's always less than that. The other things that you might want to consider putting into your budget if you make a weekly or a monthly contribution to your church, I put that in there. Things that you know are going to happen every month, maybe a haircut, maybe your cell phone bill. All those things you have to take into account when you are setting your budget. The other thing that I put in my budget, because I know at some point in time I'm going to have that bill come up, is I set aside a couple $100 every single month, whether I need it or not, and I put it in either a savings account or just set it aside for medical. I do the same thing for vehicle repairs, and I set aside money. Start small. Maybe it's $20, maybe it's $100. Do what you can afford, but set those up so that you have the ability, in the event a medical emergency comes around, you have some money to pay for a medical bill. In the event that you need an emergency repair on your car, you have money for that emergency repair. Those are the things that I think are important to set money aside for. Then do the same thing. If you get paid twice a month, then do the same thing around the middle of the month when your next paycheck comes. Okay, what bills are due towards the end of the month that will be covered by your paycheck when you get paid towards the middle of the month? And so I guess my biggest thing is I would recommend that you break it down. Break it down by when you get paid, and set your budget for the whole month, but break it down by when you get paid. And so you have part of your bills being paid out of your paycheck from the first of the month, and part of your bills being paid out of the paycheck from the middle of the month. And that should pretty much help you set a budget. And the big thing is the way I do it, I don't necessarily budget for groceries. I for groceries and gas. Now, some people do that, and I think that's great. I just don't. But some people do, and I would encourage you to do it one way or the other, whatever works most comfortably for you. But I would I generally try and set aside at the end of the month a dollar amount that gives us a little bit of room if we want to eat out every once in a while, it gives us room for groceries and gas. And we track that. I track that. I don't just track it once a month. I track it at least once a week in my checkbook to say, okay, how am I doing with the budget? How much do I have left? and make sure that your bills get paid first, the fund comes second, and then you're able to put food on the table, you're able to pay for gas, you're able to take care of your family. Those are things that I think are extremely important when you're looking at your budget. And as I go through this, I've got a couple other questions that were posed to me for this particular video that I'll talk about. But the one thing that I wanted to point out right now, that's especially important with this crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, is if there ever was a time to where this would ring true, now would be the time. So in the past, when I've given these talks to Head Start and to other entities, I've always said you should have at least 3 months worth of earnings in your savings account. And, so hypothetically, if you make $5,000 a month, you should have $15,000 in your savings account. If you and your spouse make, say it's $2,000 for each of you, that's $4,000, you should have at least $12,000 in your savings account, hopefully more. And the reason I tell you that is in times like this, when people lose their jobs or people may get laid off work, or there's a pandemic going on like there is, 3 months is generally plenty of time to find new work to hopefully get us through this crisis. And so as you're building your budget, don't forget to pay yourself first. Don't forget to put money into your own pocket. Put it in a savings account. Don't touch it unless you absolutely have to. Those are very important things to live by. And right now, let's say you were laid off and you had 3 months worth of wages in your savings account. Basically, you have 3 months to live as you were, without missing a house payment, without missing a car payment, without missing being able to put groceries on your table. If you have that kind of money set aside, it's so important in times like this. And I cannot stress enough, if you have that opportunity, or even if you don't think you do, make that opportunity for yourself. Like I said earlier, start small and make it a little bit more and more and more. Start off with $20 a paycheck into the savings, but work up to where you're putting $100, $200 in your savings account at least every single time you get paid. And then when you have a critical situation, maybe it's a medical crisis, or you blow a tire on your car and you need to spend $200 on a tire, you have money there to take care of that. And then always continue to put money into that savings account. Do not spend every last penny you have. And if you can be disciplined enough to do this, you'll be able to weather the storms like the one that we're in right now with the COVID-19 crisis and the ups and downs. I guess in closing on what I would say for the budget, I would let you know that if you do have further questions regarding how to set a budget, or if you set a budget up and would like me to look at it and kind of give you some pointers on it, I'm always happy to do that. You can email me. My email address is cfrance, F-R-A-N-C-E, at BOCRAWLINS.com. As we move on now, I want to talk just a little bit about credit cards. I won't spend too much time on this, but I was posed this question for the Head Start families, and the question was this. Are there any credit cards that are better to have than others? I'll start off with that one. Really, credit cards it's just like any other product. What you want to be careful of is annual fees. Is there an annual fee? If there is an annual fee, make sure that you're getting something for that fee. The other thing is interest rates. Credit card interest rates can go from 0% for promotional rates all the way up to 25%, I think. 25% interest is a lot, and for right reasons. Credit cards are risky lending facilities, and so it's definitely understandable why credit card companies might want to charge a higher rate. but make sure that you understand the benefits of owning that credit card. A lot of credit cards have incentives for owning their credit card and for using their cards. And so I would encourage you to, really dig into it and find which credit card makes the most sense for you. On the topic of credit cards, then the other part of the question was, is it better to pay off your debit in one or two payments, or does it even matter the number of payments? And I assume that this question is regarding for credit cards. What I always tell people is credit cards should be used as kind of an emergency situation. They can get you in a lot of trouble if you're not careful, but they can also be very useful tools. And so what I always try and encourage people to do is pay a card off every month if you can. And if you can't, pay as much as you can. I don't think it matters if you do one or two payments or three payments, as long as you're paying more than the minimum required and you're making your payments on time. If you want to really have good credit, you want to concentrate on making your payments on time, and you want to concentrate on being consistent with those payments. And if you pay the minimum payment, it will cost you a lot of money over time. And so I always recommend to people, pay as much as you can, get credit card debt, high interest, unsecured debt paid off as fast as you can. It's very important to your the health of your credit. And then how to improve your credit, a few pointers on top of that. I definitely would say improving your credit, really, it's a behavior. When banks look at your credit, they certainly are looking to see if you've paid your bills on time. And when we pull your credit report, if you haven't paid your bills on time, we're going to see that. And that adds risk, which means your interest rate will probably go up. If you have paid your bills on time, it gives us a lot of comfort. So then we're able to maybe extend credit to you at a lower interest rate and more favorable terms to you. If you have poor credit, the best thing you can do is get all of the black marks, if you will, or the negative remarks on your credit report addressed. Generally, creditors are willing to work with you if you will extend your hand in good faith and try and make it right. They will work with you on a payment plan. They will work with you on keeping, on trying to avoid sending your debt to collection. But if you just bury your head in the sand and just ignore their calls and don't work with the person that lent you the money, or the creditor, the credit card company, I can promise you that you will probably have a really bad time with your credit, and it will be difficult to get any loans in the future, whether it be a car loan, a home loan, or whatever the case may be. As far as credit cards, that's really about all I had to say about credit cards. I'm certain there's more questions, and if there are, once again, you're welcome to email me and let me know that you were watching the Head Start video that I put out, and just ask me your question and I will do my best to answer it. Once again, my email address is cfrance@bocrollins.com. That's CFRANCE at BOCRAWLINS.com. And the last topic that I was asked to maybe just talk just a little bit about is, what can we do right now? With COVID-19 and with us being in quarantine and with us being limited on, some of us don't have or can't work for one reason or another. What can I do now? Well, the good news is stimulus checks started arriving in people's accounts today. But that doesn't necessarily mean everybody got a stimulus check. But what I can tell you is, if you have a mortgage, I would recommend that you go and talk to whoever your mortgage holder is, the bank that you got your loan from. Talk to them. Ask them if you can get an extension on your loan, or pay interest only for a couple of months, or possibly a deferred payment for maybe 2 or 3 months. That's something that you can do to help you out right now, to where maybe you don't have to pay that $600 house payment. You will still owe it at some time, but generally banks are good to work with customers and to extend the payment out, especially in this time of crisis, to help them, to help the customer get through the time. And what I can tell you is certainly do it in good faith. If you really need it, ask for it. If you don't need it, I wouldn't do it, because it's going to cost you more money over time. You'll pay more interest over time. But the other thing is I think that banks are willing to work with you, especially right now. Banks don't want you to lose your house. Banks don't want you to lose your car. But as long as you make a good faith effort to make it right and to pay them, they will definitely be willing to work with you. As far as other things, beyond the stimulus checks, there's not a lot banks can do for you. I mean, there may be opportunities, but certainly the banks are going to be looking at, do you have a job? If you do, maybe there's an opportunity for to borrow money. Certainly banks are generally going to require collateral. Other sources of emergency type funds would be that credit card, that if you were smart and kept your credit card paid down, then you'll have a little bit of liquidity on your credit card to be able to access and buy groceries or whatever it is you need. But remember, that's just a short-term fix. The biggest thing that I want you all to remember is this will get better. You got to stay positive. Keep in contact. If it's your landlord and you're struggling to pay the rent, the best thing you can do is contact your landlord and just ask him for help. Can you lower the rent? Can you defer the rent? I can't tell you whether or not they will allow you to do that, but what I can tell you is if you are forthright with them and you communicate with them, it's going to paint you in a much better picture, and most likely it will create a situation where hopefully they'll work with you. But you have to remember, your landlord probably has a loan payment on that property. And so I just want to encourage you to be open-minded about that. Maybe there's something you can do to work for that landlord to help work off that month's rent. Maybe it's power rake the yard. Maybe it is paint the house. Think outside the box. Is there something that you can do to help your landlord that will in turn either put money in your pocket or keep money in your pocket? I know you are all important. You're important to me, to our bank. Everybody in our community is important. We know that there's a lot of people that are struggling, and we will do what we can to help you out. Certainly, we're charged with operating our bank in a safe and sound manner, and that's what we will do, but we are also here to do what we can to help people out. So in closing, certainly, once again, I encourage you, if you have questions about any of the topics that I covered here in the last 20 minutes, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address, cfrance@bocrollins.com. And just let me know if there's something that you have a question on, and I will do my best to help answer that question for you. Anyways, I don't really have anything else to talk about. Those were the questions that were asked of me to speak on. I hope you found this useful, and I hope you all stay safe, and pretty soon our economy will get going again, and we will all be back to work, and hopefully it'll also be summer. So thank you and have a great day.